All right. Well, hello, friends. Good morning to everybody, people on the West Coast, East Coast, US, outside US. And I know a lot of you will be watching the recording of this class that I would leave it available for about 3 days, and you can take advantage of some of the insights I'm going to share here today about our addiction to being busy. And I say our because it's cultural. It's part of our culture in US. I know it's part of the culture in places like UK, many other places in Europe, and I'm sure it's even part of the culture now in my own origin country, Brazil. But US is always leading the way. US is leading the way with very positive things and sometimes with some negative things too. So for those who don't know me, are meeting me for the first time, I coach a lot of high achievers, very busy people who come to me because of their levels of stress are starting to really affect their well-being. And I know stress is a big word. And what I see among all the high achievers that come to me, the reasons for their stress, the symptoms, I should say, of their stress is usually anxiety. Anxiety is really ruling what the culture calls mental dysfunction, mental illness. I don't call that. Anxiety is not a disease. It's not an illness. And we can do an entire class just on anxiety. But anxiety is a symptom of stress. So the symptoms I see the most when my own clients and when I teach classes, it's number one, anxiety, overwhelm, fatigue, inability to focus and finish tasks, that sense that what you're doing is never enough, so you're always behind, and an inability to relax, an inability to just sit in stillness and relax. In fact, a lot of the high achievers who try to do that, to sit and relax, they become even more stressed. Some are not even able to take vacations anymore because just the thought of a vacation is stressful. So we need to be addressing this. And this topic is dear to my heart because, when I moved to this country 26 years ago, I love this place. This place was the place I always want to be. And fast forward, when I start diving deep into the topics of stress in United States, I saw that we have become the most anxious, the most depressed, the most obese, the most stressed out place in the world. And as somebody who loves this country, and as I became a lifestyle coach, and now I help a lot of people with, heal trauma and all related to stress, everything from, too much work to unhealed childhood wounds will create stress in our lives. So my obsession with stress led me to where I am today, helping a lot of high achievers. And I used to help them a lot with psychology, mindset, and I found that that wasn't enough. So what I'm going to be talking today is that just with any kind of stress, any challenge in your life, if you're just addressing with mindset by, changing some of your behaviors, by changing some of your habits, by creating this temporary reliefs or positive affirmations, they work until they don't. They work temporarily. So in this call today, I'm going to be diving deeper, and I'm going to be talking about things that you don't see in the media. So let's first address this issue of being busy, which is glorified in our culture. So I'm going to be using the word addiction here. Addiction to being busy, addiction to work. And why am I going to use the word addiction? Because the definition of addiction is any habit, behavior, right? So a habit is a behavior that you do every single day. So addiction is any habit that is unhealthy, that might give you temporary relief, but in the long term, it brings negative consequences, affects your well-being, your health, your happiness, and you cannot stop. Any habit that is unhealthy in the long term and you cannot stop is an addiction. And we all have it. Sometimes I catch myself being very addicted to this thing, to the phone, addicted to Instagram. Used to be Facebook and now became Instagram. So addictions and behavior that you have hard time stopping, that you, in fact, you crave. You, if you stop for a second, you want to go back to that behavior. So that's an addiction. So in our culture, we have this addiction of being busy, of working all the time. So it's interesting. The last 2 days, I asked a good friend of mine, how are you? She said, oh, I'm crazy busy. So all of a sudden, I am crazy busy, or I'm busy, became an answer to when we ask a question of, how are you? When I ask you a question, how are you? I want to know how you are, how you're feeling, what you experience in your life. I wanted the deep answers. And I get a lot of the answer, I'm just super busy. And busy is not a feeling. Busy is a state. Busy is a doing. It's something we do. It's a state of mind. It's not a feeling. And yesterday, I saw somebody I hadn't seen in a while, a neighbor of a friend. And he came to me when he saw me. Instead of asking me how I am, he asked me, are you busy? So I pay attention to these things. So when people are not asking anymore how you are, and instead they ask you, are you busy? It just shows you how much we have glorified, how being busy became this badge of honor that somehow is giving us a sense of self-worth, a sense of importance, a sense that, oh, I matter. If I'm busy all the time, I matter. So just in this last statement that I shared, I think you can start getting a clue of why our culture is addicted to being busy. So I'm going to go a little deeper here. What we're really looking for, first of all, if, I work with people with addictions, might be some alcohol addiction, might be addiction to work, most addiction to work. And anytime there's an addiction, I ask one fundamental question. Number one, I don't judge any addiction because there's a reason the addiction's there. I always ask the question, what is the function of that addiction? Because this is the truth. We don't do anything unless there's a function for us. And that function is usually unconscious. We don't know the function of our behavior consciously. We know unconsciously. So if I ask, what is the function of being busy all the time? It's costing your well-being, you already know. It's costing relationships. It's costing your health. It's costing your happiness. And yet you're doing all the time. So there's a function, because again, we don't do anything unless there's a function. And the function of being busy all the time, what I found in my own research, work with clients now, high achievers for over 10 years, my own experience when I was addicted to being busy, I'm no longer there, is this, is number one, we are seeking a sense of worth. We are seeking a feeling of being good enough. So that's number one. We associate our worth with how much we do, how much we achieve, how much we accomplish. So that's one of the functions, because we need to have a sense that I am enough, which is attached also to the second one, a sense of importance. If I'm enough, I'm important. If I'm enough, I'm important. I matter. So we try to find a sense that I matter. Another aspect of this addiction is that we are escaping We are escaping pain. We are escaping some deeper feelings. Might be a feeling of boredom, might be a feeling of loneliness, might be a feeling of deep sadness, might be a feeling of frustration, anger, grief. So shame, guilt, all these emotions that we call negative emotions. So if we don't want to deal with these emotions that show up, that rise when we get quiet, then we're going to get busy to escape. That's another way to describe any addiction. Addiction to substances, to alcohol, to drugs, to exercise, to social media, to food. It's always a way to escape from something that we're feeling, some kind of pain that we don't want to experience, so we're going to escape. So work addiction is a form of escaping. Some people are escaping their unhappy marriage. Some people are escaping a health issue. Some people are escaping their own depression. They're escaping some type of truth that they don't want to see. And I say this with a lot of love and compassion, because you're not alone. If this is resonating with you, just know that you're not alone. The reason I have this data, I know all this, number one, is because I have experienced a lot of this myself. I have escaped my truth. When I was addicted to my work, I was escaping a relationship that was very stressful. I was escaping my own feelings of shame around not having enough money. I was escaping my own feelings of not being enough. So I know this because I have gone through myself. And I see with my clients that break down in tears a lot of times because they recognize this addiction. They don't know how to break this cycle. And that's what I help them with. So we're seeking a sense of being enough. We're looking for a sense of importance, and we're escaping some kind of truth. We also get addicted because of our own fears. And the fears, it's associated to everything I just mentioned. Fear of being bored, fear of being ordinary. And I work with a lot of people who have this deep fear of not being successful because success is associated with self-worth. So when I work with my clients, I basically help them to start separating that success has nothing to do with our sense of worth. Because we're all born with a sense of worth. We're all born with the essence of feeling already, I matter, I'm enough. We're not born with this flaw of feeling not enough, with this flaw of not feeling important, or this feeling that we don't matter. We adopted those beliefs or those states of mind because of the environment that was presented to us in our childhood. And I'm going to talk more about that. So now that I have defined this addiction, and number one, how you even know you might have a problem with being busy? How do you even know that you are escaping, that you have an addiction to work, addiction to be busy? Well, these are some of the symptoms. If it's not clear for you, if you're not there yet, these are some symptoms. It's a survival mechanism, okay? So all these are responses of survival or even response of trauma. But if you have this constant sense of perfectionism, if you're constantly feeling overwhelmed or anxious, and you're compromising your relationships, you're compromising even your sleep, you're compromising your health, and you have this need to be busy all the time, you want to pause and you want to definitely evaluate and think about these things I'm sharing here, because like any addiction, does not lead to a fulfilled, happy, and healthy life. And that ultimately, I can say here, no matter where you're watching this from, no matter what your background is, the color of your skin, what you went through your childhood, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, we all want to have a sense of purpose. We want to feel fulfilled. We want to be healthy and happy. So a lot of times, because it's our nature, it's our birthright to be happy and healthy, we need to ask the questions, what is in the way of me feeling healthy? What is in the way of me feeling joy, of feeling happiness, feeling fulfilled? What is in the way? What is in the way of me feeling balanced? So I used to do a lot of talks before the pandemic. I used to go to a lot of business, talk about balance, because the truth is a lot of people are feeling out of balance and they don't know how to restore that balance. It's not just about changing behaviors. So we need, when it comes to this glorified addiction, and this is why it's a problem in our culture, because think about it. If you have an addiction to drugs or alcohol, you're going to be shamed. We shame people in our society who struggle with addictions like alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling. We shame them. And yet we don't shame the people who are addicted to work. And truth to be told, let's remove the word shame. We shouldn't shame anyone that has any addiction, because underneath every single addiction, there's tremendous pain, there's trauma. So knowing that there's trauma, would you shame somebody who had a traumatic childhood, who has a lot of difficulties, who is struggling with a lot of depression? No. So don't ever shame. Don't shame anybody who has any type of addiction. Now, it's not their fault they have addictions. It's not your fault that you might have an addiction to work, that you can't stop being busy. And yet it's our responsibility to heal, to address the root of that issue. So removing the word shame, guilt, this has nothing to do with this conversation. Although my clients, the root of a lot of their addiction is feelings of shame and guilt that are associated with childhood trauma. So how do we address this root? How do we address this issue of being busy all the time? How do you stop? Because again, addiction is something that we can't stop. There's only one place to go. And before I get to that, if you Google addiction to work, addiction to being busy, all you find, even in books, there are books behind me, all you're gonna find is kind of band-aids. Yeah, like this thing I have in my finger because I cut last night. You're gonna find this temporary, fixing or covering something, Actually, I don't even know what we call Band-Aid. It's actually not right, because a Band-Aid is just here to protect my skin. But let's just say what you find mostly on the internet or even on the books, you're gonna find kind of painkillers. You're gonna find temporary reliefs to your pain. You're gonna find temporary solutions. You're gonna find temporary solutions like how to change your habits, how to change your behaviors. You're gonna find even temporary solutions in the subject of mindfulness, meditation. So usually when we want to change what we call unhealthy behavior, we're going to introduce healthy behaviors to let go that unhealthy behavior. And the problem of that, when you just introducing new behaviors to let go old behaviors, you're not addressing the root of the problem. You're just addressing the surface. You're just kind of addressing really the symptoms. You're trying to replace this unpleasant symptoms with some better symptoms. And in the short term, might work. In the short term, if you, let's say you start meditating for 20 minutes, you start journaling a little bit and exploring more your addiction, it will help you. It's a gateway to change. It's a good start. And yet it's not going to create long, sustainable changes for you. Why? Because the root of every single of our addictions is in our childhood. Goes much deeper. So think about the question I asked in the beginning, right? Like, what is the function of any addiction? If the function of addiction, if the function of working all the time, being crazy busy, if the function is when I achieve, I feel a sense of worth. When I achieve, I feel a sense of importance. When I achieve, I feel a sense of energy and vitality. I feel worthy. So those are the reasons why we have addictions to be busy. I want to feel worthy. I want to feel important. I want to feel that I matter. I want to have vitality, and I want to have a sense of worth. So then my question is, knowing that those behaviors are not healthy, my question is always, when did you lose your sense of worth? When did you lose your vitality? When did you lose your sense of importance? When did you lose your sense of joy? And those are the questions we need to ask when we understand why we engage in certain behaviors. Because again, there's always a temporary relief. People drink a whole, bottle of wine or a bottle of whiskey at night. Why? Some of my clients who have addiction to alcohol, they're drinking because it's the only way they can relax. So relaxation is a good thing, right? So then my question is, when did you lose the ability to relax? Because relaxation is a natural calling of the body. When we work hard, even working hard or exercise hard, we put any exertion, it's natural for the body to wanting resting and relaxation. And yet, people who are addicted to being busy all the time cannot rest and relax without feeling guilty, without actually feeling more stress. So they don't rest and relax. So then the question is, when did you lose the ability to relax, which is a natural mechanism of the body? We have a system in the body called the parasympathetic system. It's a system that is part of our autonomic nervous system. It's biology. It's part of our biology to relax. So if that biology has been interrupted with so much stress in the system, and the body mechanisms got all, we have a short circuit that the body signals can't get to us anymore and give a signal to relax, and we ignore those signals. So the biology starts to get messy. So when did you lose the ability to relax? So behind any addiction, we need to ask, when do we lose the ability to feel those things that we are feeling through our addiction? So if people drink in order to relax, a lot of high achievers have a habit to drink a lot of alcohol at night. And there might not be alcoholics, but yeah, there's the habit of having 2, 3, 4 cocktails at night in order to unplug, because the body needs to relax in order to survive. So if you can relax naturally, that's when you might seek the help of alcohol, cannabis. I have clients who have addiction to cannabis as well. And I'm all for natural plants. I think cannabis can be great, but not in excess. If we're using alcohol, cannabis, or psilocybin mushrooms, whatever that is, if we relying on anything externally in order to be able to relax, we need to ask the question, when did I lose my ability to relax naturally? Because it's a natural thing that the body does. So when we rely on substances, rely on anything external, another form of relaxation is TV. A lot of people would say, I watch 2-3 hours of Netflix at night because it's the only way I can relax. Well, sitting in front of the TV, laying down, yeah, might feel like relaxing because the body is laying down, but that's not true relaxation, because if your body is in a state of rest, but your mental state is constantly running, that is not relaxation. Relaxation, true rest and relaxation, is when your mind in your body can be at that state. So watching 2-3 hours of TV every night in order to relax is not true deep rest and relaxation. And then there's this sleep problem. A lot of people have problem with sleep, so they take sleeping pills. That's another thing that is natural for us. Why we have such a hard time sleeping in this culture? And we need to rely on sleeping pills. We need to rely on gummies. We need to rely on alcohol. We need to rely on something, some type of substance in order to sleep. When sleep is a natural thing that happens in our body, biologically, we don't have any problem sleeping. But because anxiety, because most people who are addicted to work, and this might resonate with you, have anxiety, the mind cannot stop. You are living in survival. And think about this, biologically speaking, if we are in survival, we're not going to sleep well, because in survival, we have this alarm system in the body that is constantly vigilant, is constantly seeking for the danger, is constantly thinking of what's going to happen next. That's a state of alarm. That's a state of survival. That's anxiety. So in that state, it's not safe to sleep, because your brain doesn't know the difference between I'm just stressed out about work or there's somebody that's going to break into my house. The brain doesn't know the difference. That sense of alarm, when it's on, doesn't know the difference. What is causing the alarm? So that's why sleeping issues, sleeping disorder is such a prevalent thing in our society. And that's creating a whole other, collection of health issues. So I'm sharing this because it's all connected. This chasing for achievement, this chase for success, this chase for more money, for more accolades, is a trauma response. And this is what you won't find when you do a Google search, when you read a Psychology Today magazine, or when you even read some of the self-help books. People are not talking about this addiction being a trauma response. And what is a trauma response? Trauma response is a survival strategy. So trauma it's what happened to us in our childhood. It's what was happening in our environment. And trauma is not just the big T trauma. And that's one thing I want to share here today. Trauma is not only if somebody had sexual abuse, if somebody was hit constantly, if somebody was constantly being neglected, or if somebody lost a parent, in childhood, or experienced tremendous poverty. Those, yes, we can call a big T trauma, but trauma is anytime as a child we experienced hard emotions like anger, sadness, grief. We were bullied. We were going through some traumatic experience in our environment, and we didn't have an adult to really hold us emotionally, to support us. So anytime a child is not seen, is not heard, her emotions are not validated, which is true with a lot of us, a lot of our trauma, including my trauma, is because my emotions are not validated. I was not held emotionally by my mother. My father was absent. So we all have trauma. And that is a truth that is hard for a lot of people to accept. But the truth is 99% of us had some sort of trauma in our childhood. And we developed survival strategies. And usually the survival strategy is all about finding a sense of belonging, a sense of like, how can I fit in? How can I be accepted? Because as a child, we're always going to seek for love and connection. We will do whatever it takes to feel attached, to feel loved and accepted by our caretakers. So let's just say our caretakers are our parents. So we will become anything, we will become anybody who is accepted, who is loved, who is validated. So think about this. And we feel attached. So think about this. Who do we need to become a lot of times in our childhood, or when we, becoming a teenager? Who do we need to become in order to be accepted, loved, and validated? Who do we need to become a lot of times? We need to become achievers. How many of you have got love, attention, validation from your parents when you got good grades, when you got a good medal, when you got your homework done, when you got some kind of reward, some kind of prize. How many of you got the love and validation and the acceptance from your parents? That's one survival strategy. So in childhood, we learn, we make a decision that when I achieve, I get love. When I achieve, I get validation. When I achieve, I get somebody make me feel worthy. You're starting to see the trail here? So we learn these programs because they're unconscious, they become unconscious. So my job with my clients is to bring the unconscious to the conscious, because once we understand these patterns, we can correct, we can heal, we can let go, and we can start separating achievement from sense of worth, because you are worthy just being you. You're worthy just being yourself. You don't need to achieve or do anything to be worthy, because you source energy. You are a spiritual being. You are a gorgeous human being in this planet. You are a miracle. What have to happen in this 13 billion of years of Earth in your universe? What had to happen in order for you to be here? You are a miracle. So you worthy, you enough, without any money, without any titles, without any relationship, without any fancy house, without any clothes, without any jewelry, you're worthy. And I know this is far reach for a lot of you, but I had to share. So in a process of healing, we come back to our essence, we come back to our hearts, which is, I'm worthy, I'm enough, I matter. Doesn't matter what you do. Doesn't matter what you have. It's who you are in your heart. You have a heart beating in your chest. You care about people. You care about the world. You matter. I just want to put that out there. So that's one. I described to you one scenarios, and I'm going to wrap it up in the next 10 minutes here. One scenario of why you have this addiction is because you have learned in childhood that by achieving, by always being achieving something, you get love, attention, validation. The problem is that survival strategy no longer works. It worked as a child because as a child, without love, without validation, without attachments to our parents, we would die. We cannot handle as a child not having those aspects. So in our childhood, our survival strategies saved our lives. The problem is using that same strategy as an adult, it's harmful, it's hurting you. So that's one scenario. Another scenario of why people become addicted to achievement, addiction to being busy all the time, and how that gets entangled with success, self-worth and success, is when the child had to become the parent. I work with a lot of clients who went through what we call parentified. They became parentified. That means when the dysfunction is so high, there's usually divorce, or there's a case of parents being drug addicts. There's a case of a mother who is living like a child. So I have clients, for example, one of them, the parents were divorced, the father left her, so there's abandonment there. And the mother lived like a gypsy. The mother lived like traveling all the time. And my client at that time, as a little girl, didn't know when food was going to be on the table, if there's any food. She didn't know when they're going to sleep next night. So there's a tremendous sense of lack of safety, lack of stability. And as a child, we need that. So at 7 years old, she had to become the parent. She had to start figuring out how to have some sense of control. And Over control is a symptom of that trauma. And over control, which is affiliated to anxiety, is a symptom of this addiction, having the need to always control. And she had to become the parent. I have another client that also, her parents went through divorce, and her mother just took care of herself. Her mother was just worried about herself. And my client, who was a child at that time, had to take care of herself, had to become an adult. So those are two very common scenarios that I see that it's the root of a lot of high achievement. Another one of my clients who is a top high achiever has really hard time relaxing, resting. It's overwhelmed with anxiety, some depression, was abused. And in order to feel some sense of control in his life, he became an overachiever very early on. So why I'm sharing these stories? Because the root of this addiction is trauma. So if we really want to address this issue, we have to go back and heal these childhood wounds, because we acting out of a trauma response. And this escaping to always being busy is because you might not want to feel, and again, I say this with a lot of compassion, that was me. It might be because you don't want to feel that pain, that loneliness, that sadness, that grief. So I am here today to invite you to pause and first admit that you might have an addiction to being busy all the time. If you're busy all the time and you have difficult resting and relax, truly rest and relax, if your life is feeling out of balance, if you might already be experiencing some physical condition, because 95% of all illnesses and diseases come from repressed and suppressed emotions. We know that. It's proved scientifically. It's just something that, again, the doctors are not talking about. So I'm here. I had, of a lot of what you read in the media, a lot of what you read in the books, that all these dysfunctions, addictions, diseases are trauma responses. And there is a way out. We don't need to carry trauma in the body anymore. There is a way out. This trauma wants to be moved out of the body. So how do we get back? What are the solutions for this? Number one, pause and just speak your truth. Speak your truth that you might have a dysfunction. You might have an addiction to being busy. And welcome to our culture. We all did. We all have, we all had. I'm a recovered one. So the solution is we need to recover essence. You need to recover your essence, come back to your heart. Come back to that place where you lost your vitality. You lost your sense of worth. You lost your sense of importance. You lost a sense that you matter. We need to restore that. Because when you feel whole, when you feel vitality, energy, worth, joy, freedom, peace, you don't need to be doing and achieving anything. But the beauty is then you get driven by love. You're no longer driven by fear. You're driven by love. So a lot of my clients have this fear like, well, but if I let go my anxiety, if I let go this perfectionism, if I let go my overwhelm, I might not be able to achieve as much. I guarantee you will. And it's going to feel way better because you're going to be coming from a place of balance, a place of love. And you're actually going to become way more productive because you're not going to be operating out of anxiety anymore. A brain in anxiety is actually a very overwhelmed, a very stressed brain. So you can, if you can have a brain free from overwhelm and anxiety, you're actually going to be way more productive because you're going to increase your ability to focus. You're going to increase your ability to solve problems. You're going to increase your intuition, your ability to be insightful, because you broaden your view. In anxiety, the brain becomes very narrow focused. So in a place of fear, your brain is not better. In a place of fear, you're just good at one thing, saving your life. And you don't need to be saving your life right now because you're not running away from a lion. You're not running away from, an enemy. Our own enemy is our minds. So my invitation here to you all today is to heal. So the solution is recover your essence. Connect with some kind of a spiritual practice. Reconnect with your spirit. This has nothing to do with religion. Get into the spiritual path. Reconnect with your heart and with your spirit, which has nothing to do with achievement, because that's where your whole sense of worth, health, vitality, fulfillment is in your spirit, in your heart. Feel your feelings. Don't escape from them. If you're feeling bored, if you're feeling sad, if you're feeling lonely, sit with those feelings. They will pass, or get to the root of those feelings. And a lot of times I say, if they get overwhelming, that's when you work with a good therapist or a good coach. I am a life coach who practices therapeutic models. I help people to heal from trauma. I help my clients to address the root of these addictions. So you just need to work with somebody who you feel safe with and has a lot of compassion, because healing only happens in the container of safety and compassion. And you also need to work with somebody who has done this work. A lot of psychologists, a lot of counselors, a lot of therapists have not done the work themselves. So it's just a note. If somebody has not walked this path themselves, they won't be able to guide you. What makes me a person who is able to guide my clients is because I've done tremendous healing within myself, and healing is part of my everyday life. I dedicate 2 hours a day minimum to my practices, to sit with my feelings, sometimes even 3 hours. So all I say is, whoever you choose to work with somebody who has walked in this path and who is constantly walking this path. If you want to explore this work with me, contact me. We'll book a 30-minute free call, and we can talk about this trauma response. Because as you learn here today, this addiction to work, this addiction to being busy is a trauma response. You can't just have temporary relief. Yes, meditation might give you a temporary relief. Exercise might give you a temporary relief. An antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication might give you a relief for about 6 months. But again, I'm not here to talk about temporarily fixes. I'm interested in getting you back to your essence, getting you back to the place where you feel the joy, the love, freedom, and peace, which are the qualities of your heart, where you can feel that every day, no matter how much you achieve, no matter what you do, because it doesn't matter. You're a gorgeous human being, that you're worthy, you are enough, regardless what you have, what you do. So my invitation here to you is to explore, to break these addictions, and to really, really live a life that is fulfilled, happy, and healthy. And there's a way to that. So thank you so much. Send questions after you watch this video. You can share this video with friends and family, and send me questions, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. There's a lot of content there. Check my new website, and I am currently taking new clients. We'll just need to have a conversation about it to see where you are in your path, and if you're ready to go deeper. And if you're ready to go deeper, we might be a good fit to work together. So thank you so much, and I can't wait to see you again. Many blessings.